Hey, if you like some of my NBA discussions here, make sure to subscribe to my other channel, which is original NBA content, which I post every week about different NBA topics. And yeah, it's a new channel, so make sure to support it. And yeah, hope you enjoy. Hi, my name is Lyric, and today we're going to be reacting to why Steph Curry might be the best offensive player ever. Greatest Peaks, episode 15. This is the final episode of Greatest Peaks. There is one more that's like his top 10 greatest peaks, like a list, which I'm super hyped for. But this is the last like normal episode of Greatest Peaks, so it's been an amazing journey going through this entire series. And yeah, we're on the last one here about Steph Curry. So yeah, we watched his highlights yesterday. So let's just get into it, man. Steph Curry, potentially the greatest offensive player of all time.
Superstars have either been really tall or really athletic. Every other player in this series is at least 6'5". Except for this guy, Wardell Stephen Curry.
Wardell,
Curry's
baby.
rightfully considered the greatest shooter in NBA history.
And that's not close.
Just how good can someone be with outlier shooting? How much did his lack of classic athleticism hold him back on defense? And was his radical offensive
I don't think he's a bad defender. I think he's an above average.
Changing that it made him the most valuable offensive player
at worst
of
neutral.
All time.
Most valuable offensive player of all time. Goddamn. Okay, here we go.
Where's Larry Bird in all this? Has it blocked by Elijah? Michael Jordan saves the day.
This series tackles one question. Who was the best at his best? We start at the ABA merger and go through the best multi-year stretches, examining the legends who provided the most on-court impact. These are the greatest peaks.
I'm hyped, man. Let's go. Steph Curry, 2016 to 17.
I liked it, but I was more interested in basketball at the time.
Like baby Curry.
It was more my sport, kind of. I had more. I was kind of better at it. It's basketball, and I wanted to practice more on it and try to make it to the pro.
How is shot form clean at like 9 years old, man?
The other offensive greats we've looked at in this series found a way to pressure the rim while also getting to their sweet spots. Kareem had his sky hook, Jordan had mid-range pull-ups, but Curry short-circuited the entire system. He didn't park himself in the most valuable spot like Shaq, and he didn't charge toward the basket like LeBron. Instead, he turned the three-point line into his own personal layup.
Changed the game forever, man.
To 19,
forever.
Curry made nearly 50% of his open threes. That's the equivalent of a 73% two-point shot, efficiency that only incredible rim finishers can generate. But instead of being limited to the restricted area to produce this kind of efficiency, he could manufacture his long-range layups from all over the court. Curry became a real-life video game, a custom player.
I said it last video, man.
Shooting, who started
literally a cheat code
from 28 feet away, like there was a glitch in the Matrix. It was only slightly better for defenders when they were a touch closer. At 4 to 6 feet away, he made 43% of his threes, the equivalent of a mere 65% from two-point range.
That's so great, insane, man. That's so insane.
Percentages, but Curry set himself apart with the obscene volume at which he could manufacture these attempts. It starts with his release speed, which is the quickest that ESPN Sports Science has ever clocked, around 0.4 of a second on some of these shots.
Quickest ever release.
In less time than it takes to, say, basketball, Curry ends his dribble and has the shot out of his hands.
True.
So instead of using verticality to keep his shot away from defenders, he used speed. So they can't close the distance horizontally. This is how he can
you have to be all up on him all the time.
Court, even when guarded by bigger defenders. Curry even has crazy release speed in catch-and-shoot situations, taking around 2/3 of a second to grab a pass and turn it into a shot. And this could be even faster on perfect passes because he tried to catch it while he was squared up to the basket, ready to shoot.
0.4 of a goddamn second, man.
Also had some lightning-quick releases back in the 90s, although at 6'2", Steph was even shorter, so his release speed was even more important. Another reason he's able to generate so many of these quality threes
the range.
Is range.
His range is just the entire court.
Shot out to at least 30 feet, which means there are a few
like that's not a deep three
for
for Curry.
feet on the court where an open Steph Curry 3 is highly efficient offense. There have been scientific breakdowns of this as well, and the key to his long-range accuracy is minimal knee bend, which limits the variability in his shot mechanics. This creates a consistent energy transfer off the floor, where Curry flexes his wrist harder at the end of the movement to control the distance, giving him an incredibly stable shot from well beyond the line.
So instead of pushing it more, he just flicks the wrist more.
Another skill that separated Steph from so many great shooters was his handle. His dribbling sets up so many of these shots by helping him probe for superior shooting spots.
All-time great
on
handles.
The floor. He had all the building
but yeah,
blocks
so dangerous compared to his shooting.
Combined
With his shooting.
This one creates a ton of space into the step back, and it turns into free throws.
Oh, that's a flop and a half right there.
Full arsenal of through the legs, behind the back crossovers, or sharp crosses in front of the body.
Could Steven Adams. Had him on an island.
He likes to throw combinations. A second behind the back bounce buckles Kevin Durant and leads to a layup. And this was more audacious, an in and out into the behind the back in traffic, and the sweet finish for an and one.
See, it works every time.
He blended hesitations with sharp, hard dribbles, staying over his center of gravity to accelerate in any direction. Steph didn't really lean much on these moves, keeping weight in both feet for quick changes of direction after his dribble, which meant he could do this on the run right there and create a little opening from deep to pull up from. The threat of these pull-ups from anywhere opened up his drives. He looks at the hoop and
that's what makes him such a great finisher as well.
He's going to shoot.
Part of the reason.
Fakes out James Harden
because you have to bite on every fake. You can't afford to let him just shoot.
And
you have to bite on every fake.
Lift defenders off their feet by merely looking at the basket. Kevin Love lunges at him, which gets Curry free, but again he can't.
People are trying to make him not shoot a three at all costs.
Steph's small stature made finishing in traffic a tricky endeavor. He destroys Gerald Henderson, but another wing sliding over alters his shot. This time he uses that fake step back by looking at the hoop, but he sees traffic in the lane and pulls up early, which ends up in a rejection from behind. These little pull-ups could be an effective counter. Love crowds him so tightly he only needs a first step, and a soft banker from about 8 feet does the trick. Curry wasn't lightning quick, but with defenders so far out worried about his shot, he could get a step. And once he turns the corner,
you don't have to be that quick when people are trying to get that close to you,
Scoop. Most attackers take an additional dribble in these spots to explode upwards, but he couldn't win verticality contests, so he relied on ambidextrous touch.
100%.
Longer, higher arcing layups.
I think he's gonna get into his off-ball movement here too. Curry's, I think, is the best off-ball player, like damn near of all time, just because of how much you need to pay attention to him off-ball.
Convert these kinds of finishes regularly. When there wasn't a second defender, that handle let him attack guards and flip up little shots like this. And some of these were just incredible finishes, making circus shots look like no big deal.
Oh my god.
These could even work against shot blockers. A crossover into a shot fake that freezes the defender briefly and sets up the huge teardrop off.
Just needs to bite a little bit on it,
similar to what
so you
we saw
can
from
speed past
Larry
him.
Bird in episode 4, where creative, adaptive skill offsets a lack of verticality. Curry brings the ball far away from the defender and his body, and has the concentration to take one in the face and still finish. Since defense couldn't give Steph any airspace on ball screens, big men often switched onto him. So when he was able to get a step, he could use his body to protect himself from larger shot blockers. This came in 2 forms. He could either angle back into the path of the defender, or when a shot blocker was in pursuit, he could decelerate and create contact. Despite weighing around 190 pounds,
because he's already in the air, he can't slow down, but you can slow down.
Players sometimes, and these moments where he embraced physicality on hard drives not only helped him finish, but gave him a respectable free throw rate for someone who relied so much on shooting and ball skills. Curry's
a good, but the greatest free throw shooter of all time.
A pretty good rim finisher, and an especially good one for a point guard. Tony Parker is the historical gold standard among little guys, but Steph wasn't too far off in terms of volume or efficiency.
Westbrook.
Sometimes.
Why you have to do Westbrook like that, man? Why you?
Volume.
Why you have to do Westbrook like that? Why you gotta show both of his seasons that are below league average, man? Why you gotta cook him like that, man?
Or efficiency. Sometimes he'd mix in mid-range shots, stopping on a dime on one of these drives, but only about 10% of his offense came off of 2-pointers outside of 10 feet like this. Curry's style organically bypassed the mid-range because he was either hunting for threes, half of his offense came from downtown, or driving by defenders who chased him far away from the basket. Steph took three-point hunting to a new level, becoming more dangerous after passing it, which brings us to the fourth
off ball. Here we go.
He generated so many great attempts.
Yeah, we're gonna be off ball shit.
Off-ball movement. Many great shooters run around without the ball, but Curry took the art to a new level. His most notable contribution to the field was the relocation shot, where he'd pass it and then immediately run out to the three-point line for a catch-and-shoot triple.
Dude, it's the hardest job defending him, bro, because he's always fucking moving. And he's always dangerous from any position, so you can't rest any time
attack off the
with him,
bounce
man.
Pull up or finish into traffic, but Steph passed it so we could just keep looking around for higher percentage shots even without the ball. Remember, big men often switched out onto him, and they weren't used to clinging to their marks after a pass, and those brief lulls created more 24.
Because big men, they're used to not having to worry about their guy after he left the paint. But
the human torch. Of course, Curry had all the classic off-ball routes too, curling off screens right into a bomb, and he was a master at using picks, walking defenders right into his teammate and jutting out the other side for open looks. When teams overplayed the top side to take away the three, he had incredible feel for slipping back door. And then a minute later, that back door sets up a counter.
We just really needed if
to the three-point line.
You'll try to get you away from the three so much that you have to make a threat to get to the basket a lot too. To compare with it.
If you're interested in more Curry cuts and the power of off-ball movement, there's an entire video about it on this channel. In addition to having every off-ball move in the book, Steph just never stopped moving.
Right,
which
the stamina
made him a threat to score all the time. And because he ran around so much, Curry was an all-time great endurance athlete, training not just his lungs, but his nervous system to be able to stroke these shots on autopilot, even with fatigued legs. Despite this atypical approach,
I thought I saw a stat one time that said like Curry runs 4 miles per game or some crazy shit like that.
And Curry authored the greatest scoring regular season ever, becoming the only player in the three-point era to lead the league in scoring volume and in scoring efficiency. Of course, the possessions where Curry wasn't scoring had an enormous effect as well, because Steph required unique defensive attention that the league had never seen.
Right. Completely changed the league. Had no answer for him.
The bacon, Dad. Now you're cooking, Dad. Smooth as the milkshake.
After his record-setting regular season in 2016, Curry hit a rough patch in the playoffs, quite literally, spraining his MCL. He returned a few weeks later, and while his numbers were still good, they were a step down from his blazing regular season performance. The Cavs wanted to be physical with Curry in the finals, bumping him away from the ball whenever they had the chance, with the intention of wearing him down. Big men
they did that. They did that.
And he ran by, and Curry's man harassed him while nearly ignoring the on-ball action. The goal was to take away Steph's threes and force his teammates to make them. And these rules of physically face-guarding him while a second defender also put a body on him led to 11 fewer touches per game for Steph.
Damn,
his scoring volume
great defense.
Process. When Curry had the ball, they jumped his screens hard or simply trapped him, so he was forced to give it up. And this led to wide open shots. But Steph's teammates shot a chilly 28% from downtown with him on the court in the finals.
That's tough. I want Iguodala.
By the way, Other teams mimicked these tactics in the ensuing years, and Curry responded by gaining some muscle to help absorb this kind of physical load.
Ah, nice.
So that Cleveland defense had an effect, but Steph also lost some of his rhythm and lateral quickness by playing through pain and some stiffness after that injury. And his normal ability to punish big men on some of these switches was noticeably absent at times in that series. He wasn't sharp handling some of those Cavalier traps, throwing a few lazy passes, and turnovers were a problem for him in general. Even with fantastic ball handling, he could be a bit sloppy at times, and his dribbling aggression came with some
I'm thinking about that
risk.
pass he did behind the back to Klay Thompson in the
Whether
finals.
this was more rust or game planning, Curry's playoff scoring wasn't quite as otherworldly as his regular season stampedes, which still made him an all-time level scorer, just not an outlier. So much of defending Curry is about what's happening away from the action, and that kind of defensive attention leads to open shots for the Warriors. This is
The
Curry's
gravity creates so
legendary
much open shots for
gravity,
him.
pulling
Yeah, here we
extra
go.
defenders into his orbit, even when he didn't have the ball. And this is a sizable part of his offensive impact.
Getting double teamed off
drawing
ball
the
is so
defense
nasty.
away from his teammates as they freak out about his shooting. The price to pay for devoting so many resources to stopping Steph's scoring was wide open layups at the hoop while defenses fixated on Curry. And people often point
Price you have
out
to pay.
that these defenders are merely confused, which is true because guarding Curry creates confusion. The margin for
unlike what you're
error
meant to
is
do.
minuscule. Sometimes it's not even confusion. The Jazz devote the entire weak side to keeping an eye on Curry, and even with 3 defenders, they will concede a Draymond Green triple before losing Steph.
Well, I made it though.
Some gravity is more subtle. LeBron would normally be closer to the block on the weak side, but he's whispering sweet somethings in Steph's ear in the corner. Here's some relocation gravity.
They had taken an open
None of
layup
these
over a
defenders are
goddamn
even thinking about
Curry
closing
3.
out to
That's how
Klay
crazy it is.
Thompson, one of humanity's best shooters of the round ball. And sometimes defenders start anticipating
What makes that duo
what to
so
do,
crazy?
and
You
that
can't put
leads to
everyone
more
on Steph Curry at the
layups.
3-point line. Yeah, they'll make sure
These
that
kinds
Klay
of
doesn't get
plays
his
are
3.
exactly how a so-called jump shooting team can lead the league in field goal percentage at the rim. We noted
Insane.
last episode how Curry made life easier for Durant, and nothing symbolizes this better than the second quarter of the 2017 finals, where Curry parted the seas for him not once but twice in transition. Steph's shooting accuracy changed the rules on the fast break, where defenders prioritized him over guarding the ball at times.
They'd rather,
The traditional
they're
approach
probably
of
sprinting
sprinting
out
back to the paint
3
didn't
and transition.
work with him because
Guarding
they ended
that.
up leading
Oh,
to
no, dunk.
practice shots. Reggie Miller was the first player to regularly run to the three-point line in transition, but Curry couldn't be given any airspace from inside 30 feet, so he
Insane,
could
yeah.
find cracks to exploit when defenses weren't set. This should be a layup here because Durant prioritizes Curry, but he also loses contact with Steph, and so it's a super efficient open 3.
Doing
This
decisive,
is
man.
exactly why you'll see defenders run to the line with Steph, leaving the paint wide open for a ball handler. You'll notice Klay has a gravitational pull on defenders too, and this made the two of them
Which makes
so
sense.
difficult to guard as a tandem, and
The double
particularly
gravity.
in screening actions, where defenders are still accustomed to chasing Thompson around screens, and any brief lapse leaves one of the 2 best shooters ever uncovered. Here, Curry turns this cut into a screen. His man keeps going to Klay, and the often stationary James Harden is left sealed off, and it's a layup. When defenses wisen up to his back picks like this, Curry can then fake these screens, slipping out to his personal ATM for some more cash.
Personal ATM,
So then
I like that.
defenders remind themselves, always stay with Steph, always stay with Steph, and that glues defenders to him while his teammates practice more layups.
So hard to get help
He
when
was
you have to
also
always hit a guy on
nasty little
Steph.
screener because smaller players tend to get away with additional contact and movement as part of their natural grappling away from the action. Oh, by the way, Curry could pass too. While his
Yeah.
teammates were usually
He had
piling
everything on the
assists his
offensive play in the
off-ball
book.
movement,
I hate when people say he can just
send it
shoot. Look at all
home
this shit can do, man.
for wide open layups. Too wide open, some might say. Steph's combination of movement and ball handling meant he could flow from a cut
but yeah, Steph Curry is literally the perfect offensive player.
to a kick out to feed his teammates. And his release speed helped him turn an off-the-dribble threat into a quick delivery for 2.
Ooh,
All
Sean
of his
Livingston.
supergiant gravity in transition opened up passing lanes as well. And it was the same story setting up for a deep pull-up. 3 Jazz are pulled into his orbit, and it's high percentage offense at the hoop. Curry had good vision in general. He's probing for a pull-up.
It's super good when you have like you counter so many double teams because of your
instead,
gravity that
and
you
he
need to
hit
be
a
able to
bunch
pass out of
these
them.
little
Super great.
creases in the middle
So,
of the floor
you know,
in transition.
makes the offense
Here's
so much better.
Another quick trigger pass off the
Along
bounce.
with you know,
This time he whips
his
it
ball handling
left-handed,
also made it.
although
You know,
Clay wasn't really
where he
in
can
the
get
mood
those
for
open
a
shots
layup,
too, so
apparently,
it's
so
amazing.
it turns into a right-handed drive-and kick from Curry. Kick-out passes were actually a bit of an adventure for him because of how small he was. He couldn't throw it over the top, so deflections were an issue. And when he probed deeper, size could swallow up his passing angles and clog his outlet valves.
Look at
When he kept his dribble alive and had cleaner sight lines, these turned into open threes. But he could also dribble himself into a forest of trees where he couldn't really see the best pass. The top of the key is wide open here.
You're covered by so many
and
players,
you
you can't even
another
fucking see what's going on.
deflection. He could get into the paint and find laydown passes when help came over, but accuracy could also be a problem on some of these deliveries. Some of Steph's passing at the rim was a bit wild like this. Note this was a no-look attempt, and Curry mixed in his fair share of lookaways to make up for that lack of passing height. It also helped that he varied his deliveries, mixing hook passes with bouncers and little two-handed drop-offs like this. Some of these were bold ideas. This is a Magic Johnson heater past J.R. Smith's ear, and this play shows reflexes and court awareness, spinning to find a teammate in tight quarters.
That's amazing court awareness.
However,
The spin
some
move
bold
there.
ideas bordered on reckless, throwing errant behind
Oh,
the
here we go.
passes,
There's that
or
famous
just
pass.
wavering into sloppiness on basic deliveries, leading to more turnovers. Out of spread pick and roll, he could deliver most passes. This is a basic strong side help off the shooter a pass away. And here's a skip pass where the weak side defender slides over to help, and it's another Draymond 3. It was actually rare for Curry to get downhill with this classic 2-on-1 because he usually just took a 3 against coverages like this. He could certainly hit the opposite side shooter.
Just priority
It
the
was
3 over
more
anything
common
else.
to see a second defender jump him while his teammates rolled to the basket. This is a bit late because it was tricky throwing these around bigger defenders. On this play, the big
Size
man
still
gives
causing
him
some
space,
problems.
so it's a much easier completion before the paint help arrives. Compare that to this coverage, where 2 huge defenders are involved, one pressuring Curry on the ball, while Durant sits in front of the roller, and it's a different pass. Another thing that changes his pick and roll dynamic is where many of these screens are set. Curry's near the logo here, and so it takes longer to hit screeners who aren't shooting threats when they roll. This time it's staggered screens, and again, size makes it uncomfortable enough to bypass Durant for a short roll pass, but he uses the look away and throws it out of bounds. So Steph saw most valuable passes on screen and rolls. It was often just a matter of finding a delivery angle so he could send it home. Again, this meant using those whip passes and hook passes.
He does those whips a lot.
Hands, and he sprinkled
That's
in
like
more
his main
audacious
pass.
lobs or soft deliveries as well. Many teams simply trapped the Curry pick and roll just to get the ball out of his hands, and that could stall the offense a touch. If Harden recovered on time here, this wouldn't be an open KD jumper. Which
Well,
is
it's Harden.
where
Of course he's
Draymond's
gonna
short
fuck it
roll
up.
passing became so critical, gashing teams in these 4-on-3s. Green's ball handling, high-end vision, and speed made him a phenomenal fit next to Curry, where he could pick apart defensive passes after teams tried to neuter Steph's three-point high-end vision, which is where Draymond's short roll audacious lobs or soft a little.
My bad, guys.
To get the ball
I fucked
out of his
something up.
hands, and that could stall the offense a touch if Harden recovered on time here. Green's ball handling,
Green was a fantastic fit next to Curry.
Made him a phenomenal fit next to Curry.
Also with his all-time great defense.
Defenses as a roll man when opposing teams tried to neuter Steph's
three-point with his passing as a power forward is nuts.
A great passing hub like Draymond is an ideal
amazing playmaker next to all-time great offensive players of Curry and Clay.
Capitalize on Steph's gravity from the top. Make extra
capitalizes on so well. That's a good way to put it with his playmaking.
Or collapse the defense with the ball himself, setting up arguably the greatest perimeter finisher ever. This helped those Warriors teams put together phenomenal regular season offenses, and while they were still great in the playoffs, they fell back a little, commensurate with Curry's drop in scoring we saw earlier. Keep in mind, though, teams sold out to take away his scoring, so that huge off-ball effect made him a playmaking machine. Estimates of his shot creation land in the top 15 of all time, and it's hard to say how
shot
well
creation
that
is
for his
not close.
ability
It's
to stretch
nuts.
Defenses. So there are lingering questions about his offensive impact in the playoffs, but before we get to those, we need to look at just how effective he was on the defensive end.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, this is my mic.
Yeah, speaking to the mic.
I thought you were doing the Ricky Bobby thing, like covering my face.
No, this is my mic.
I got you. I'm feeling great, but excited about the finals. We got
Legendary.
4 months to go, so hopefully get it done.
While the Warriors dynasty set a new standard for offensive excellence, they were also a high-end defensive team.
Right, led by
As one
Draymond
of the
stuff.
best defenders of the 21st century, Draymond Green led
Yeah.
Golden State's
Woo!
switchable,
Look at that.
intelligent scheme on that end.
One of the most intelligent
And because
defenders,
the Warriors
100%.
surrounded Curry with 4 players who were 6'6" or taller most of the time, it was common practice for teams to target Steph in the playoffs. The Cavs
Which makes
did
sense
this
just because
in
of size.
during all of their final matchups, looking for a switch onto the dangerous Kyrie Irving or the much larger LeBron James, who could use his size to back Curry down.
Oh yeah, that's just not fair.
And force help or score himself. In the 2018 Western Finals, Houston hunted Curry even more since attacking weak spots with James Harden or Chris Paul was a core part of their offense.
Which makes
this
sense.
strategy adds to
You have
Curry's
guards
physical
go after
wear
the
and
smaller
tear,
guard.
potentially slowing down his attack and getting him into foul trouble. But otherwise, it was an enormously effective.
Fucking
because
Harden with
Curry
the
held
fouls.
up pretty well against even the game's best isolation scorers. Kyrie gives up on this one with
great
Green
movement.
finally shifted over, and against Harden there were strong moments. He jabs at the ball twice and disrupts him, then crowds him and takes one in the ear for an offensive foul. Steph was pesky on the ball like this, using his hands quite a bit. The left hand slows down the driver, the right hand then controls him a little, and he was small enough to get away with this contact. He was
Yeah, small
actually
guys,
really
they said earlier,
physical
get away
in
with the
general
contact
on
more.
defense, actively pawing at the ball and bodying up ball handlers with his hands high when they drove like this. He didn't have incredible
Very
lateral
disciplined.
quickness. He goes to put some weight into Irving here and turns into a matador trying to recover. But he wasn't smoked off the dribble too frequently because of how active he was on the balls of his feet, his willingness to get physical, and his reaction time. Notice the really short steps, which helps him stay balanced so he can quickly change directions with the ball handler. You can see how sharp his reflexes are here, sliding with Harden's crossover immediately, bodying him hard, and then he smothers a shot at the end.
Take
Curry
contact
loved
very well,
attacking the ball
offense and
a
defense.
move like this, he's a bit behind on this one, but ends up with a late strip. And his hands were
amazing at
active
this,
on
yeah,
the
steals,
outside
leading
as well,
steals.
preventing a step back attempt on this play. Steph was often trying to overcome a size disadvantage. He wasn't going to throw off many shots vertically, so attacking the rock low like this gave him a chance, even if it led to some fouls in the process.
Yeah, it's worth it if you're good at that because, you know, obviously you can't, not gonna be blocking a lot of shots.
And had a clear look at the ball, catching leather not once but twice in this sequence.
Nice.
He's completely beaten here, again grabs an arm to slow down the dribbler, and the hands save the play from behind. Because he was only 6'2",
quick hands.
Curry was a mismatch for bigger players on the block. On this one, he tries to hold off LeBron, but James is too powerful, and so it's a foul.
I mean, it's not, you know, you wouldn't expect him to stop that.
For this was to front the post hard and deny an entry pass in the first place. And because he had a high revving motor, he was pretty successful with this technique.
Makes sense.
Here he sits down to take away the entry, then works hard to track the ball at a different angle.
He sits down. I like that.
Comes up with a steal. The Warriors had other techniques to protect him, pre-switching Curry here so he wouldn't be involved in the pick and roll, and then Draymond sees a potential mismatch and breaks up the post pass beautifully. Steph could also get
amazing vision there from Draymond,
which helped avoid a switch and kept everyone on their original assignment. Although crowding potential screeners and getting handsy with them opened up a few backdoor cuts, and when Steph overplayed off-ball shooters like this, he occasionally received a taste of his own medicine. Unsurprisingly, he was also chasing players off the ball. He could lean over his toes and get off balance like that. And again, here's some hand fighting and subtle holding to stay connected. And then on the ball,
it's looking like Curry's a lot more physical defender than people give him credit for.
100% in front of the dribbler.
Like y'all fucking old heads talking about how Curry went around in the 80s.
He could power through some of these screens sometimes to stay with his man. And even if that didn't work, he was quite good about staying connected to the screener on a switch using his bag of tricks. I'd say he was generally good navigating ball screens, here steering the dribbler away from the screen by design, then activating those hands on the roll pass for another steal. On this one, he steps up
the steals work really well for him
to avoid it, and that contains everything well.
Amazing. Yeah, that was amazing.
Curry gambles for a steal, and that exposes the
that's bad.
The paint. He actually rarely took overt gambles like that. He was selective about selling out for these.
Which is super good for a guy leading the steals to not gamble that much.
His ability to play passing lanes was based more on anticipation and reflexes than on risk-taking. This, again, made him similar to Bird. Their best defensive strength was reading these kinds of passes and timing up interceptions without taking needless chances. This is a 3-on-1, and he spots the passer's eyes to make an incredible save off the lob, and
that's
then
amazing.
Going the other way, turns it into 2 points himself. Steph was also dangerous, sneaking around outlet passes like this, and yeah, that's probably
Jose Alvarado, baby.
And it is time to dance on the floor. Here's one off the inbounds, and this time Curry wants to bring Clay into the party, and that team was just unfair.
Dude, look at the score, man. Celebrating before it even fucking... Oh my god.
Curry landed in the 93rd percentile historically in steals during these years. He was also smart about timing up his double teams, and what's key here is that he keeps going after the first effort, saving a layup with the extra help. And he rarely missed these second and third efforts on a defensive sequence, flowing from one responsibility to the next. That's a decent closeout to end the possession, although I wouldn't say he was that effective closing out because his size made jumpers easier for shooters.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
His small stature was a limiting factor on paint rotations too, where he could slide into position but couldn't offer much resistance at the rim. Steph was generally
what are you gonna do at that point?
Rotate into the lane like this, and that's far better than being bigger but late to arrive or blowing the assignment. Here's a nice example where
so it is the best he can. He just can't do that much in the paint.
Then gives extra effort
other
to
than
tag
the
a cutter
hands
when the ball switches to the other side of the court. But still, he added basically zero rim protection on high leverage plays where he needed to plug up the back line. And despite his consistent effort, he had an occasional attentional lapse, focusing in on the ball too much and falling a few steps out of position. Impact metrics actually view him as a solid positive defender, although his overall playoff numbers
I think he's a good defender, man.
Pedestrian than his incredible regular season stats.
It's looking like in both offense and defense. It's looking like he is does go down a step in the playoffs compared to the regular season, which is a big deficiency there. That's actually really big.
But even if injuries weren't
even though we're talking about how great, you know,
his missed time still skewed these
offenses
impact numbers.
And was a positive
his teammates were able to inflate their plus-minus by playing weaker teams in early rounds. But Steph's plus-minus was accrued against championship-level opponents in the later rounds. If we calculated the numbers after Curry returned from his injuries, giving his teammates the same opponents as him, suddenly Steph looks like one of the most impactful playoff performers on record, even with a clear drop in 2016 compared to his surrounding seasons.
Yeah, 2016 did not do well, partly because of the injury, probably because he just straight up choked.
At least to me, that's
okay, so that kind of goes with what I just said.
The extra defensive attention he received still shredded defenses, even if his scoring dipped as a result. Furthermore, in larger regular season samples,
so his scoring went down because they paid even more attention to him in the playoffs, but he still was just as impactful.
His numbers were still incredibly impressive against strong defenses when compared to weak ones, maintaining most of his volume and efficiency relative to other great players. There's also some evidence that he'll ramp up his scoring more when he shares the floor with weaker finishers. His volume with Durant and Thompson on the bench resembles video game levels, and these numbers are similar in a
with
much
both of them on the plane. Goddamn.
Sample. Throughout all of
yeah, I saw a stat that was like the Warriors without Clay, Durant, or Draymond were like at a higher plus minus at when all of them were on the court just without Curry. So KD, Clay, and Draymond all on the court were worse than just Curry without KD, Clay, or Draymond, which is nuts.
These permutations
shows how valuable he is. And nuts.
Curry on the court remained elite while they crushed their opponents. I do still have some concerns about his durability. Attacking him on defense and wearing down his legs seem to have some effect, but Curry's gravity is a constant phenomenon that made him arguably the most scalable offensive weapon in basketball history, making life easier for basically any other offensive star. He doesn't have the typical signs of an impact defender, but he also doesn't look like a negative on that end either. Instead, his incredible value comes almost entirely from his otherworldly shooting, off-ball impact, and that on-ball playmaking.
Way more than just a shooter, man.
It's a one-of-a-kind package that combine to make Steph Curry.
So we look here: offense, GOAT shooter, off dribble and off catch, quick release, range lead to huge volume. GOAT level movement, off ball leads to GOAT off ball gravity and all time spacing. Above average on ball passer for a point guard. Good vision but limited by size at times. And on defense, solid man defender at point of attack. Good reaction speed and active feet on ball. Physical in general, handsy chasing players away from the ball. Size, a key weakness, no paint protection. Smart schemingly with minor awareness fails.
Perhaps the best offensive player in NBA history.
Greatest defensive player ever. Alright, so that was the ending of the Greatest Peaks series in general. We have one more video, which is going to be the topic of the Greatest Peaks of all time. And yeah, so comment below. Do you think Steph Curry is the greatest offensive player of all time? Or do you think, if you don't, tell me who you think is better offensively than Steph Curry? And where do you think he ranks all time? Is he top 10 all time? He's the best point guard of all time? Or is he overrated? But, yeah, make sure to subscribe to my original NBA channel. Link is the first link in the description. And, yeah,